So knowing what we know now, do you think Biden made a gaffe or a Freudian slip when he said Democrats have a massive voter fraud organization ready to go on Election Day?
Biden is incapable of telling the difference between the two. I think in retrospect, that's a telling statement because that's exactly what the Democrats seem to have been doing. And we're not talking about episodic fraud, a dead guy here, a guy who moved out of state over there. We're talking about an orchestrated campaign. Now, Trump had talked before the election about voter fraud, and I thought at that time it's a little premature. Like, why is he bringing this up? But in retrospect, he was very prescient. I think he knew that these guys had cooked up a massive scheme to flood the country with these mail-in ballots, then to create a system in which it's difficult to observe the ballots and check them, and therefore the bad ballots, the fraudulent ballots, get thrown in with the legal ballots. And then when you raise an objection, they go, where's your evidence of voter fraud? They've set up a system that prevents that evidence from coming to light. So this is actually a very diabolical operation here. And the Trump campaign, I think, is right to question it, to challenge it, to take every possible step to try to ensure that our votes were fairly cast.
Is there anything else they can be doing? Because we are seeing some Trump campaign staffers, some surrogates such as Pam Bondi and Corey Lewandowski. They are on the ground, Richard Grenell, on the ground right now in a lot of these tight states where these races are happening, trying to keep the pressure on. And they're going to the courts, of course, to stop ballot counting in some states, to recount in others. Is that all they can do at this point?
No, step one is you need very good lawyers. I remember thinking back to 2000 that Bush had very good lawyers in the Bush-Gore recount. Very tough lawyers, not just good in the academic sense, but tough. Number two, you need the GOP to unify behind this. The leading candidates for 2024, the leading senators and congressmen, there's a little bit of an eerie silence there. It's almost like the GOP is in its normal pose of sort of wait and see what happens. And this is a kind of timorousness or cowardice that I think bodes very badly. I think anyone who stays on the sidelines should have no future in the leadership of the GOP. And the third step is for the ordinary public to make its voices heard and make it really clear that, look, we can live with the result where we lost fair and square, but we're not convinced by the winners declaring, oh, the system is fair. No, the people who organize the system have always got to convince the loser. The guy who comes in fifth in a race can accept the result if he started on the same line and the gun went off and the clock went on and he saw somebody else hit the finishing tape first. But if he feels that the race was rigged, people starting at different positions and so on, then that guy's never going to accept the result. And it's utterly pointless to say things like, let's heal, let's move on. We're not going to be doing that.
And as we see this drag out now for days and days, and some counties, even in Nevada, are saying they won't have their final toll until, I believe, the 12th of this month. So about a week there. Does it remind you of back a few weeks ago when Hillary Clinton was publicly telling and advising Joe Biden to not concede under any circumstances? It's almost as if they knew that this would happen.
Well, first of all, I hope that Trump takes Hillary's advice and never concedes and fights this all the way through. But I think, second, it is true that there is, to me, no rational explanation for these long delays, other than the fact that they did not expect there to be so many votes for Trump, and they've got to basically fabricate some more. So that, if I think back to 2016, Trump, for example, was leading Pennsylvania by 50,000 votes, which I thought, wow, that's a big number. But now it's 600,000 votes. They probably cooked up 100,000 votes. They didn't expect 600,000. So a lot more cooking has to go on to produce those extra votes. So this is actually shenanigans upon shenanigans. I think they know that we know, and they're relying on a kind of compliant media to basically put up their defense. This ultimately is their secret weapon, is the media that has a sort of, with a straight face, oh, no, there's no evidence of voter fraud, even though they know deep down, just like with the Biden scandal, they knew. The reason that they were covering it up is not because it was false, but because it was true.